everybody, it's the Lawn Gnome, and welcome back to another episode of this very special series to cap off a decade of popular culture, the best and worst of 2019. And today, we're going to be talking about something that is just as prominent as everything else. We've already tackled movies, but of course, we have to tackle all the stuff that we saw on the small screen in the last 10 years as well. So yes, today we're going to be talking about television, and I'm really excited about this because what's very interesting about this four-part series is the fact that I have actually gone global. I've actually gotten some people outside the United States to join me for this adventure. And I'm excited about that because when you come from a different country, there's so many different things that your country offers, and the other people probably don't even know about some of these things. So I think that it's going to be not just a fun experience, but a true learning experience for me as well. And I've got a great guest to join me today to talk about the best and worst of the last 10 years in television. It's Rachel from Rachel's Reading Corner, who actually worked with me just this summer. So Rachel, thank you so much for joining me again. It's great to have you back.
Thanks for having me. Hi.
Yeah, I always appreciate when we talk because we just have amazing conversations about everything and anything. And, you know, you may be a booktuber, but I have to say that I am very impressed with your knowledge in all the other areas of popular culture. So I'm hoping that after you and I and Gloria talking about Scott Pilgrim and us talking a little bit about television, because you told me recently that you were a Simpsons fan and you joined me for that little 10 for 12 as well, I'm hoping you'll bring some of these more to your channel as well, because I think a lot of people would like to see this side of you.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so we've got a long list of categories to go through, and the most important thing is that each of these will spark a very interesting discussion, I hope. So let's take a look at television because we got to break it up into two separate categories because they do that a lot when it comes to the award shows that praise television, whether it's the Emmys or whether it's the Golden Globes. We got to go into drama and comedy. And of course, for some strange reason, drama is apparently a little bit higher up on the pedestal when it comes to comedy, which is so strange to me because sometimes I feel that when you take a look at some of the comedies that are out there, they seem to be a lot better than the dramas sometimes. But that's just me, you know? So let's go into dramas. So my good friend, in the last 10 years, what do you think was the best dramatic television show?
Okay, so I wrote down two things because I feel like there's one that can't not be mentioned, but I also don't think it deserves to be called the best anymore. So that's Game of Thrones. For all that it's added, it's basically defined this decade of TV.
Absolutely.
So, like, it can't not be there, but it
yeah,
really
we'll go.
But it hurt.
I know. We'll talk a little bit more. So if that's your honorable mention, what was the one that you chose?
I chose Orange is the New Black.
Okay, there you go. That's a big one.
That's definitely one of the best shows, and it ended so well, and I absolutely adore it.
Yeah, I mean, I will still count that since you mentioned it as an honorable mention, it's still sort of a match because I still feel that counts. But yeah, my favorite dramatic show was Game of Thrones, and yes, I will not deny that last season was god-awful. And, you know, it's one thing to have a fantastic show and see it as it gradually goes on by the seasons, gradually starts to lower itself and not really be as great. So then when you get to the series finale, it's not such a hurting feeling. But it's like, when you take a look at how amazing this show was, and that's the reason why I still feel that it is the best one, because you can't just kill it because of one bad season, because you had 7 more seasons and they were all amazing. Because one of the things
they were all amazing.
Well,
that's the thing. I think like 1 to 4, oh my god, the best TV I've ever seen. Seasons 1 to 4, like, loved it. But after that, I don't know, it started losing it for me.
See, for me, it was 1 to 4. 5 was good but not great.
Yeah,
6 and 7 I loved, and 8 I just thought was terrible. Except for the thing that I could say that was positive about season 8 was it had a lot of good moments, but it didn't really have the overall greatness that the show had. But the reason why I keep saying that it's the best show is because it basically took television and turned it on its head.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's why you can't, that's why I literally was like, I can't do this question without mentioning it, even though I can't put it as my number one. Like,
yeah.
I would not say it because it has just completely defined everything TV-wise.
I mean, I still think that one of the funniest things about the show was, you know, at the very beginning, it's like, yeah, we're going to kill off your favorite character right before the season ends. Now, as someone who knows the career of Sean Bean, for some strange reason, I'm really shocked that I did still get completely dumbfounded when he died. Because I was like, wait a minute, it's Sean Bean. Of course he's supposed to die in this. But not so, maybe it's just because of the fact that it was so soon.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd read the book before then, so I knew it was coming, but I remember like watching it with other people and just like, you know, when you just sat there quietly, like staring at them, waiting for them to see it happen.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, you know, the best thing about Game of Thrones was that they introduced us to so many great actors. I mean, especially the younger ones. Like I'm seeing really, really big things for Sophie Turner and Maisie Williams. I mean, they're going to be getting more projects, and I'm sure that Kit Harington will get more. Gwendolyn Christie's going to get more. Alfie Allen. I mean, you know, you name it. There are just so many amazing actors and actresses on that show. But the same can be said about Orange is the New Black. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, didn't Orange is the New Black have Jason Biggs from American Pie on it for like a couple of seasons?
Yeah, for like 2 or 3, I think it was.
And I know that Laura Prepon is also on that show. And I mean, like, you want to talk about Laura Prepon, I loved her as Donna from that 70s show. That was one of my favorite performances of hers. Yeah, that 70s show has a very special place in my heart because all of my sister's friends nicknamed my father Red because they said that my dad was exactly like Red Foreman. And I actually see that a great deal. Like, he is the kind of guy that will literally go to one of his kids and say, stop being an idiot, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was really nice to see her get a larger stay on another show as well, because I like those actors on that show. They're all great.
So did you watch Black then?
No, it wasn't really my cup of tea, but one of the few things that I definitely have grown to do as someone who, I mean, I give YouTube a lot of credit for this, you know, when it's something that I'm not watching, I still will not deny its greatness. And when I see how it does in the ratings and amongst the fans, there will be some times where I will actually just put that like as a best. Like, there are a couple of things in this group of categories that we're going to be discussing today. Some of these are shows that I never watched, but there are certain names and certain shows in this grouping that have to be called the best because of the impact that they had over the last 10 years.
Okay, so you've mentioned things that you've not watched.
Absolutely, and I'll explain them as we go along because I have to give credit where credit's due. That's the way it goes for me. So, what do you think was the best comedy of the last 10 years?
So this is the one. So I mentioned before that I had one that started in the decade before, but the majority of it happened in this present decade.
Okay.
So it is Parks and Recreation.
Okay, gotcha.
I love this show. And it surprised me because normally, like, I err on the side of British comedy, and I really like British comedy, but that show, oh, it's everything. I love it so much.
I mean, it's got a great cast attached to it, and that's the reason why. I mean, like, I was talking when I discussed movies with my friend Taylor, you know, we talked about Chris Pratt because Chris Pratt got started on that show, and I don't think anyone in a million years would have imagined that he would be the pop culture icon that he is right now. You know, he's basically gone from like the chubby, quirky guy to Star-Lord. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It would have been a shame if I didn't mention this show as the best comedy of the last decade, because it really is to me, because so many people, especially in YouTube, will admit it as well. My favorite comedy of the last 10 years has been Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It is one of the wackiest, craziest shows I've ever watched. And I still remember when it first aired on Fox over here in the United States, and at the beginning, I wasn't sure if the show was going to be able to be as good as it was because I saw Andy Samberg pretty much carrying the show. But after the first season, they finally gave all the other actors a chance to flex their comedic muscles, and it's become a completely different animal. And all those reoccurring themes, like the heist is my favorite episode every single year when it shows up. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's so funny. And it just got wackier and weirder, but it got so much funnier. And all the actors on that show are amazing.
I always love the captain and his husband, like just how monotone they are all the time. It cracks me up.
As a matter of fact, we're going to talk about that show, about Andre Braugher a little bit later, because I have to get a couple of interesting things off my chest in regards to his character. But, you know, I was really surprised that the show ended up getting canceled by Fox and picked up by NBC. I mean, I don't think that really ever happens in television in general. Like, when another station actually realizes that a show is that popular, I gotta get it because we gotta keep it on the air. I mean, I think that Fox made a big mistake about canceling it from their network, but then again, you know, we also have to consider the fact, yeah, because of the fact that also Disney took the Fox Entertainment from them. So, you know, with the whole acquisition of Fox by Disney, Fox had to make a lot of sacrifices. Another one of the shows that I am going to talk about also is no longer on television. If you want to watch it, you got to go to Hulu now. But but Brooklyn Nine-Nine, you know, it's great. And I'm also happy to know that I actually met one of the cast members.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it was at my bachelor party. We were at a place in New York City called, we were at a place in, it was in a place in the city called Barcade. It's basically a bar with classic arcade games. And all of a sudden, one of my friends just taps me on the shoulder and he says, "Are you a Brooklyn Nine-Nine fan?" I said, "Yeah, I'm a big fan." He goes, "I think Boyle's over there."
Oh my God, seriously?
So yeah, I met Joe Latruglio, and he was awesome. I love him because he's a native New Yorker. He loves the New York Mets, the baseball team, and because we actually had gone to a Mets game earlier that morning. I had an amazing bachelor party. I went to a Mets game and I went to Barcade and I had pizza. It was awesome. But then the tequila hit and everything went downhill from there. But it was kind of funny because of the fact that I reached out to my cousin because I had a really bad hangover the next morning, and I said, "I did meet Joe Latruglio from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, right?" He goes, "Yes, that actually happened. You met him."
It wasn't the tequila.
No, and I still remember that part of the bachelor party because I actually, I didn't want to cause a scene, but I actually, whispered over there, "Excuse me, sir, are you Joe Latruglio from Brooklyn Nine-Nine?" And he said, and of course he made a joke, and I said, "I don't want to cause a scene here, but I just want to say I love your show. You guys are all fantastic." And then he just stuck around, just started talking to us for about 5 minutes. It was awesome.
Oh, that's so lovely.
Yeah, he really was a really cool guy. I liked the fact that I met him. So, so let's talk about animation, because there are a lot of animated shows that do make their impacts, whether they are for kids or for adults. There are some really good ones that I have specifically seen over the last 10 years. So what was your favorite?
So I have a favorite. This is what I've there's too many good shows, so I've cheated with someone, had to just mention two at the same time. So for kids and best animation wise, I picked Over the Garden Wall.
Okay, I've never even heard of that.
Okay, so this was out in 2014, and it was done by Cartoon Network, and it's really short. There's only one season, and each episode's only 10 minutes long, and it's about these two little brothers who get lost in the woods.
Oh,
and
that's
they
so cool.
have to make their way out, and it's really spooky, complete Halloween vibes, and it is just the cutest little show I've ever seen.
That is really cool. I've never heard about that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people haven't heard of it, but my friend does 3D animation and games design.
Oh, so, cool.
She sends me a lot of animation stuff, so that's how.
That is really cool. That's really cool. Okay, I went with Troll Hunters. That's a Netflix show, and the reason why I loved it is because it was created by Guillermo del Toro.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a really cool idea. It was basically about this little town called Arcadia, and there is a whole other fantasy kind of world, like underground in the city. And
Okay.
basically, there are these good trolls and there are these evil trolls, and there is a warrior on the good side called the Troll Hunter who basically hunts down all the bad ones. And he
Yeah.
is right off the bat in the first episode, he's killed, and the amulet that gives the Troll Hunter his power seeks out the first human Troll Hunter.
Hmm.
And it's a boy in his teen years named Jim,
Yeah.
and he and his two friends just become a part of this fantasy world. And the best part about this is Jim is advised by these two trolls. One of them is like a real intellectual named Blinky, and the other one just is like, you know, one of those gentle giants named Arg. But the best part about those two is that Blinky is voiced by Kelsey Grammer. So I
Okay.
love him on that show. He's really good. And
Yeah.
there's also got some additional great people in the cast. Unfortunately, the late Anton Yeltsin was the voice of Jim, and he passed away during the third season. But what was so interesting is they actually did start creating a whole world around Troll Hunters. So there was a second series that came out right after Troll Hunters called Three Below, which was about aliens living in that town. And now they're going to plan on making a third and final series called Wizards, which is really about more like magic and spells and cool stuff like that.
Oh, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, and it was also made by DreamWorks. So it's, if you like fantasy, and what I also really like about it is it has that classic 1980s and 90s cartoon feel to it. Like the kinds of cartoons that kids used to watch on Saturday mornings. Like it's not one of those like Teen Titans Go or anything like that. Like there's definitely a brain in its head, and it's got some really good moments on the show. I really enjoyed Troll Hunters a lot.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have it, but I do know that it is on Netflix
I don't know if it is on Netflix or not.
I don't know. Like for some strange reason, the Netflix in the UK and United States are very different.
The other one I wanted to mention quickly is more because it's like for an adult. It's like an animated show for adults, so I was like a bit different. But Bob's Burgers started this decade, and that is a show.
You know something? I tried to get into it and I couldn't. I really tried.
Why? All the kids in that show are like my favorite thing ever.
Yeah, I mean, they are making a movie. Did you know that?
I did not know that, but that's
they're planning to make a movie. I mean, like I love John H. Benjamin because I mean, like I remember him when he got his I heard his voice for the first time on Family Guy, but I love him in Archer. He's hilarious in Archer. But yeah, I mean, like I'm really impressed to see Bob's Burgers like really being the show that it is right now. And it's so funny because I'm doing my Simpsons documentary on my Gnome Docs right now, and it's so interesting because when the Simpsons were at the height of its popularity, all other animated sitcoms, they like tried to go up against the Simpsons, and every single one of them just like didn't make it. But after Family Guy, basically now the Simpsons is like not the best one anymore because there's so many others that are just doing so well. Like South Park has been around for 20 years now.
South Park's gonna get mentioned later.
Yeah, I mean, South Park's been on for 20 years. Family Guy has been on for over 15 years. Like, it's amazing. But then again, you know, The Simpsons has been on for 30 years. So.
Yeah, The Simpsons is probably the longest one.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, definitely. But it's nice to see a lot of adult animation like really still making their marks, and it's not just the one.
I like that it's made for adults. I think like some people think animation is just for kids, and I'm like, no, it's really cool when they make it like more for adults. And I really like that show.
Yeah, that's a show that my sister keeps telling me I have to get into. I mean, I just last year started watching Rick and Morty. Now that show is completely off of its rocker.
That's so weird.
But it's funny.
It's so difficult to like. Once you're in it, you're in it. But
yes,
like, in it, it's like, what the hell is going on right now?
Yeah, but there are just some moments on that show that I'll laugh like really hard, even just because it's that funny. So, let's now get into some of the actors that gave us some of these great characters that we've watched over the last 10 years. Who was your favorite actor for drama?
So I picked Cillian Murphy from Peaky Blinders.
Oh, I love Cillian Murphy. I never watched Peaky Blinders, but I love him.
If you love him, you would love Peaky Blinders. It is a hell of a show.
He is the Scarecrow, thanks to Christopher Nolan, and it's not a movie that many people talk about, but Red Eye. He was so good on that movie.
The one on the plane.
Yes, with Rachel McAdams. He was so good on that movie.
Yeah, definitely.
I may be wrong about this. I'm actually going to check this up right now because I'm now being reminded of a movie that he was in. I'm quite certain he was also in Dunkirk.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was.
Yeah, he was.
Or it might be Tom Hardy, because Tom Hardy's in Peaky Blinders and he's in Dunkirk. Is it him? No, I'm sure he is.
I believe it is Cillian Murphy. You know, I'm going to let everybody right now I'm going to just Google him right now, and I have no issue with talking about this right now while we're talking about television, because we need to find this out. We do.
Is Peaky Blinders something that's quite known in America?
Yes, it is. A lot of people talk about it.
Okay. I wasn't sure, because like some of the things I've mentioned today are like very British, and I was like, oh, I don't know if you're gonna know what they are sometimes.
Nah, Peaky Blinders is a show a lot of people know about, and I was right. He was in Dunkirk, and because of the fact that I was looking through this, he was also in Inception. So he had a good decade.
Yeah, Inception.
He had a great decade these past 10 years. Yeah, I had to go with Peter Dinklage. I had to. Because Tyrion Lannister was just one of the greatest characters that the small screen gave us. And the scariest part about Peter Dinklage that not that many people know, he's not even British.
I remember hearing that and being like, what the fuck?
He's from New Jersey!
He is definitely one of the best things to come out.
That just shows you what a great actor you can be. If you can literally pass off that you are a British actor, that just shows you how great your talents are. And I mean, my favorite moment in the entire series of Game of Thrones was his speech that he made at his trial.
Yeah, that is good. Have you seen him dancing as well? When he like, with the pins on his hand. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, like, I really hope that he gets more movies. I mean, I know that he had been in a couple of movies before Game of Thrones and after Game of Thrones,
but he always pops up at Christmas when I'm watching Elf. He always pops up right at the end, and I'm like, oh shit, I always forget that you're in this film.
But I would really like to see him do so much more, because I just loved him on this show, because even though he wasn't the purest of people, he still managed to prove to have a good heart. I mean, when it came to the one character that, besides him, whose story I was so, like, into, it was Sansa. Because you want to talk about the famous line, bad things happen to good people. You couldn't see that more accurately than Sansa, but he treated her with such kindness.
Oh yeah, he's one of the loveliest people. And I mean, he's a bit more ambiguous in the books, but at the same time, I actually like where Peter Dinklage took it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't mind that he changed it, because I quite liked the changes that he did. So I thought it was good.
Yeah, I really appreciated his performance. So how about a Best Actress for drama?
So I picked Tatiana Maslany from Orphan Black.
Oh, wow.
She plays like 100 different people on that show. And I would literally watch scenes and be like, halfway through, oh shit, she's playing every single person in this scene. And I didn't even, you don't even clock it. I was just like so shocked.
Yeah, that is pretty funny. So my Best Actress for drama, I chose an actress that I haven't watched a single show of.
How?
Yeah, I told you I was going to do this, but the only reason why is because of the fact that she deserves this. And it's Elizabeth Moss.
From?
She was in Mad Men. And she's in The Handmaid's Tale.
I haven't seen The Handmaid's Tale because I've been waiting to read it.
So you're one of those people that doesn't judge a book by its movie.
No, I'm like, I will wait the amount of time I need to until I've read that book.
No, I mean, it's like every single day I'm listening about television, and when I take a look at all of these people that get all of these awards, I'm like, Elizabeth Moss, Elizabeth Moss, Elizabeth Moss. So I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
if she's this big, she's the best actress in drama as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
You know, she's done all of these amazing shows, whether she was in the supporting cast or whether she was a headliner, but she's the best actress as opposed to supporting, because in Mad Men she was the supporting actress, but she basically came into her own because of The Handmaid's Tale, and now she's one of the most powerful actresses for drama.
I've never actually seen Mad Men. I feel like Mad Men's like an institution in America.
I know a lot of people who watched Mad Men, even people that were very close to me, like my own mother. She watched a couple of episodes of Mad Men. She wanted me to try and get into it, but I never really did.
Yeah. Just
Yeah.
never got there.
Yeah. So now let's take a look at comedy. So who was the best actor for comedy?
So I picked, I don't know what his last name is, but he's called Josh in the show, and he's called Josh in real life, but I can't remember his name. But he's from a show called Please Like Me, and it's an Australian show, and I absolutely loved it. It's so dark. It's like the darkest, sarcastic kind of comedy, but I absolutely loved it.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'd never even heard about that show.
Yeah, I loved it. The main character like wrote and played the main character and directed it and all that sort of stuff, so it's really, really cool. It was only on for like 3 seasons, but it was good.
Well, for comedy, I had to go with Andre Braugher.
Okay.
Yeah, as Captain Holt. I mean, come on. Brooklyn Nine-Nine, you know, it was actually him that gave me the reason to actually say, I think that this show is not going to go away. It's not.
Yeah.
And it was the scene where he just comes in and he says, I'm having a terrible bad hair day. Look at it. It's a disaster. I'm like, he doesn't even have any hair on his head.
Oh, he is definitely like one of the best things that's come out of TV.
Yeah, he had been on TV for a very long time. I mean, he had done a lot of drama. And the first time that I actually ever heard him was not even an acting performance, but it was because of his voice acting performance. Okay. He was voicing Darkseid in a Batman Superman animated movie. And I was like, who is this guy? I like him. Okay, so let's go into the best actress for comedy. Who'd you pick?
Okay. So I picked 4 people, but that's because they're all from the same show and they all like make that show. They're like the 4 main characters and they're all amazing. And they are the 4 main girls from Derry Girls. So I don't know if you've heard of this.
You know what? That name sounds so familiar to me.
So it's an Irish show and it's got 4 teenage girls in the main characters. And it's about Ireland in the 90s, you know, when they separated Northern Ireland off.
Okay.
And it's about Londonderry and this separation happening. And yeah, just all that sort of stuff. It's absolutely hilarious. It's one of the funniest shows that's come out. And it only came out in like 2019, maybe 2018. No,
so it's relatively new.
So it's very, very new. But I absolutely love it. And it's been renewed for a new season next year, so I'm excited.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. So I'm going also with an actress who is in one of the more newer shows that I've been watching. I'm also very excited to talk about this because it's actually a show that is streamable only. So, yeah. I'm going with Rachel Brosnahan from The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Oh, I haven't seen that. I have heard a lot about that, actually.
That is an amazing show. Yeah. I love it because I love how it captures New York in the late 1950s. And the other thing that I love so much about it is, as someone who is Jewish, I see a lot of Judaism in this show. But what I like about it is it's not necessarily a lot of the religious stuff. It's really about the modern American Jewish woman. in this
Okay.
show. It's just really cool how they're so immersed in popular culture, but they also keep to the traditions, and it's
okay. Oh, that does sound good.
yeah, and the best part is, like, I see my family in, like, every scene and every family member. It's like when I went to temple on Yom Kippur, and I see everybody in the sanctuary on that show complaining about how they're not allowed to eat. That's what happens in my synagogue every single year. Everybody is the exact same way. And because of the fact that nobody's eating, everybody is angry, everybody is frustrated, everybody's yelling at each other. It's really, really funny. But I also like how it captures the American stand-up comedy scene, because that was when a lot of comedians were coming out and not necessarily just doing great shows, but also talking about a lot of controversial stuff that was like classified as taboo. So it's really, really cool. And she as Midge Maisel is so funny. And if you're a Family Guy watcher, Alex Bornstein, the voice of Lois, is one of the producers and also one of the actors on the show. She plays Midge's manager, Susie, and she is amazing on this show. Like, she's a laugh-a-minute riot. You would love her on this show.
That sounds good. So it
yeah.
hasn't been on that long then? Because I heard about it, but I didn't know if it had been on a while, so I was like, oh, gotta get a lot of seasons in.
No, actually, the 3rd season just premiered this week.
Okay.
So, no, it hasn't been on for this long, but it obviously has made a big splash because it's been winning so many awards.
Yeah.
So many awards. So now let's get into those who support these great actors and actresses. Let's go into these supporting actors and actresses. So let's go with drama first. What was your favorite Best Supporting Actor?
So I picked someone from a juggernaut of a show from the last decade. And I picked Evan Peters from American Horror Story. Mainly the 1st season, because he steals that season. I mean, he's great in it all, but that season's amazing.
Now you see, I never watched American Horror Story, so I had no idea that he was on this show, because I love Evan Peters. Kick-Ass, and he's Quicksilver from X-Men.
Yeah.
So I love him. He's a great actor. I didn't know. The only person that I always knew that was on American Horror Story was Lady Gaga. That's the only person I knew who was on American Horror Story.
Okay. No, Evan Peters has been on, I'd say, the majority of them. I think there's about 8, is either 8 or 9 seasons now, and he's definitely been on at least 6 or 7.
That's really, really cool.
Yeah, he's amazing in it. Really, really good.
That's great. That's great to know, because I like him as an actor, and I don't see him as often in films, but the fact that he's got this great career in television is amazing.
Yeah. Like, he's of the cast, he's one of, like, the main ones in that cast.
Okay, so I actually am going to be talking about an actor on a show that I don't watch again, but but he has been on this show pretty much for the last 10 years, and people I know who do watch this show love him on the show. It's also a reboot. I went with Scott Conn from Hawaii Five-0. He plays Dano, the famous line, "Book 'em Dano," from the original show. It's a show that my father loves. And Scott Conn, he says, is absolutely amazing. And, being the son of the great James Conn, that says a lot about you and your acting career. But he has had a couple of bit roles for many, many years in film and television. I remember him being on one of my favorite shows from the last decade, which was Entourage, for a little bit.
Okay, I have heard a lot about Entourage.
Entourage is great. I'm actually rewatching it right now. I'm on season 2. What a great show. But he has been solid on this specific television show on CBS for the last 11, 12 years, I think. It's been on for a very long time now. And my dad says to me that he is like one of the best in television right now. And I believe him, because Scott Conn's a great actor. I like him. So now let's go into Best Supporting Actress for Drama.
Best Supporting Actress for Drama. So I tried not to repeat anything, because I wanted to have different things for every question. But I had to say Game of Thrones again, because I had to say Lena Headey, because she is one of my favourite people. So I say my favourite character from Game of Thrones. People find unbelievable. I love her. And I think Lena Headey was amazing in that role. Like, so good.
And I appreciate the fact that you mentioned her, because now I know how to pronounce her last name. I've been calling her Lena Headey for years.
That's funny.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. No, I won't disagree with you there. Lena Headey is amazing, because I've also seen her in one of my favorite movies that she's in. She plays the villain in the very unknown Dredd, starring Carl Urban, the remake of Judge Dredd starring Sylvester Stallone, but this was the really great comic book movie version of Judge Dredd, and she plays the villain, and she is so good. But she's actually, along with two other Game of Thrones actresses, Natalie Dormer and Natalie Emmanuel, all three of these ladies lent their voices to characters in the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance on Netflix this year.
Okay.
So the fact that now they are all associated with something that Jim Henson's legacy has, I mean, like, that's awesome.
Definitely.
Yeah, I highly recommend that show. I mean, the movie from 1982, it's so-so, but the stuff that had gone into making this television show is incredible. And the fact that they're still using the Muppets with a little bit of CGI, but more so practical effects, but just that voice cast. Those three, Mark Hamill's in it, Benedict Wong is in it, Taron Egerton is in it, Andy Samberg's in it, Simon Pegg, so many famous actors. Yeah, there's like so many famous names attached to these puppets. And the fact that 3 Game of Thrones cast members are in there is great too. I love that.
Yeah, definitely.
So, what'd you say?
Who did you pick?
Okay. There's no way that I am going to stop talking about television today and not mention Stranger Things. Best Supporting Actress, Millie Bobby Brown.
So this is one of the shows that I have actually missed this decade that I feel like everybody's seen, and it's like embarrassing that I've not seen it.
I have to admit, I am shocked that you didn't see it, because based on the things that you have been talking about, Stranger Things is right up your goddamn alley.
Yeah, and people always say that because I really like it, and apparently there's like a bit of a similarity there. And so, yeah, but I've never seen it.
I cannot recommend Stranger Things enough. It's literally, it's amazing. The acting in this show is incredible, and the story is so deep. And if you are just a fan of anything sci-fi or horror that came out of the 1980s, like everything from E.T. to the Goonies to Gremlins, even from these last couple of years, the movie Super 8, because that was a very 80s feel kind of movie. You know, anything that Steven Spielberg gave you in the 1980s, that's Stranger Things in a nutshell.
Yeah.
I think you would like it. It is great. But Millie Bobby Brown is 11. She is such a great actress. And the thing that I really love is that these are young kids, and they're growing now before our eyes, and they're just doing such a great job. I'm really loving that. Stranger Things is going to be mentioned a couple of times here.
Yeah.
So now let's go into Best Supporting Actor for Comedy.
Best Supporting Actor. Oh, so I picked Ron Swanson from Parks and Recreation because he's like my favourite person in the world ever. I love him. I love Nick Offerman. Everything that he does is just right, and he is the funniest person on that show. I love him.
You know, Nick Offerman has really surprised me, because he's actually showing that he doesn't just do comedy. He does some good drama work too.
I haven't really seen him in much else. I've only really seen him a lot in that one, and then I saw some of his stand-up, but I loved both. I like everything I've seen so far.
I would recommend a movie called The Founder, starring Michael Keaton, which is the story of the founder of McDonald's.
Okay.
And Nick Offerman plays one of the McDonald's brothers who created the original McDonald's restaurant in California.
Yeah.
You never even recognize Nick Offerman because he doesn't even have his mustache. So
whoa. That sounds weird.
But he was the best part of that movie. Better than Michael Keaton's performance.
Really? Okay.
I was really surprised he didn't get nominated for a Best Supporting Actor role for that movie. He was so good on that movie. He really was. For me, the Best Actor for supporting roles in a comedy is going to be a duo because you cannot have one without the other.
Okay.
It was a revolutionary show. It's actually about to end this year. The show is Modern Family, and Jesse Tyler Ferguson and Eric Stonestreet. They play the gay couple of this family in Modern Family, and the two of them are just hilarious together. I don't know if you've ever watched Modern Family.
No, it's another one that's like a big American like hitter that like I don't think as many people have seen over here.
It's really, really funny because it's also because one of the things that the UK is very much known for is the whole concept of the mockumentary. I mean, thanks to Christopher Guest. So if you liked Parks and Recreation,
yeah, definitely.
It's the exact same style. It's a mockumentary.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah, but the funny thing about these two guys is the fact that they play a gay couple, but one of them is actually not gay in real life. So that just shows you how great he is as an actor. Eric Stonestreet plays the character Cameron, and he is the best part of the whole show. But when he and Jesse Tyler Ferguson, who actually is gay, he plays his husband Mitch, they are just, it's magic. It's comedy magic. It really is.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I got into the show really late. I got into it, I think, in like season 7, but I really, really liked it. I went back and watched some of the old episodes. It's really, really, really good. And this is also going to be a show that I'm going to mention a little bit later as well.
Okay.
Okay, Best Supporting Actress for Comedy.
So you're going to like this one.
Okay.
I picked Gina Linetti from Brooklyn Nine-Nine because she's definitely the one.
Chelsea Peretti.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is funny.
Her one, like that moment where she's like saying that she loves the view from up there on a high horse, and she's just like clip clap. That made my life. I love her.
Yeah, the whole thing. She has a funny connection with horses on that show.
Yeah.
Like, I still remember this one episode where she was talking to Andy Samberg's character, and she's like, because her birthday was coming up, and so of course Jake goes, you know, your birthday's coming up. She goes, yeah, it's my birthday. It's really nothing that I care much about. He's like, you came to the office last year on a horse.
Of course she did.
And of course, the whole thing that she does when it comes to the heist on Halloween, that's like the best. She was one of the best characters on the whole show. It's really upsetting that she left.
Oh, I know. That actually did.
But you know something? Stephanie Beatrice and Melissa Fumero, who play Amy and Rosa, they've really stepped their game up on the show. Rosa's really changed a lot on the show for the better. She has been so good.
I agree.
Yeah, so for me, Best Actress in a Comedy is another show that I didn't watch, but I watch this actress on everything else that she does. And she's also right now in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel in a very, very minor role. The show was Glee, Jane Lynch.
Okay, yeah.
Because Jane Lynch is just funny. Amazing. End of story. She is, I've watched a couple of clips from Glee, and they're all of her. And she's so funny.
She makes, like, every time her and Will Schuester have any sort of argument or anything where she can make a, like, shitty remark is the best part of the show. It's amazing. Yeah,
and also, you know, she was in one of my favorite movies, The 40-Year-Old Virgin. She had that small role, and, I mean, she's in Wreck-It Ralph. I mean, she's so good in that movie. I love her in that movie. Yeah. I don't know what it is about her, but it's like she also has that distinct voice. It's like the minute you hear her voice, you know it's Jane Lynch right off the bat. Yeah, she's awesome. She really, really is. So now we're going to get into some interesting categories. There are some actors and actresses that like have a big breakout and they are like the it thing. But then all of a sudden they're just not there anymore. But then a show comes out, and because of that, they're attached, and their comeback is enormous. The last decade, I gave this award to Neil Patrick Harris, because How I Met Your Mother put him back on the map. I mean, we could definitely say Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle was the first part of it, but as Barney,
Yeah.
you know, I mentioned earlier Eric Stonestreet from Modern Family, a straight guy playing a gay guy. But Neil Patrick Harris, we know, is openly gay, and he played
straight so well.
He was the straightest straight man I ever saw on television. And also, if it wasn't for him, I think that when it came to big television shows and popular culture, we'd still be stuck in the reality television loop.
Okay.
How I Met Your Mother was the starting point of the big sitcom comeback. Specifically, CBS ran that gamut. But, you know, after How I Met Your Mother got successful, I mean, Modern Family comes out, The Big Bang Theory comes out, and now we're watching comedies all again, and everybody is loving everything that's on television right now. So for me, I actually give it a tie because there's an actor and an actress, especially because of the fact that they were both people who got their careers started in the 80s. One of them is about to wrap it up, but one of them is going strong. I'm giving the best comeback performances to Ed O'Neill, who's now in Modern Family, and Winona Ryder, who's in Stranger Things.
Yeah, I have that. She's in Stranger Things.
Because Ed O'Neill is known for one of the greatest sitcoms of all time as Al Bundy in Married with Children. I don't know if you've ever watched that show.
No.
I am going to send you a video because what's going to blow your mind is how politically incorrect that show was.
Really?
But knowing how far the bar has been pushed in terms of the way that movies and television are made, like you can get really gross, you can get really offensive, but Married with Children is still the worst of the worst in a good way. In a good way. So, and I mean, like the show was on for 11 years. And Al Bundy, when people mention that name, it's like, that's the big thing, because right now, one of the top videos streaming on YouTube right now is Al Bundy's greatest moments.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the fun fact about Ed O'Neill is he hadn't been on television really since Married with Children, but now he's been on Modern Family. And when Modern Family ends, he will have been on 2 television shows that lasted 11 seasons each.
That's impressive.
Yeah, and his character in Modern Family, Jay Pritchett, is so different from Al Bundy. Very different. But he played that role so well. It was great. He's such a great actor, and I'm so glad that Modern Family took a chance on him, especially considering where he was as the characters that he played in television. And, you know, to go from a channel like Fox to ABC, which is the Disney-owned family network television station, like that was a big risk, but they did it, and he was great. And Winona Ryder, I mean, come on. She was the it thing in the 80s, and to bring her back to Stranger Things, I mean, there are some points in time where we think that she is like stoned or something while we're watching her on Stranger Things, but I love her in this show. She's so good. She really is.
That is the main reason that I would watch, because I absolutely loved Winona Ryder when I was a kid. I feel like most girls who are my age can relate to like being obsessed with her when they were younger, you know, because she was just in so many like amazing shows. So it definitely is a reason that I would pick it up.
Yeah, one of my favorite roles of Winona Ryder's in film is Reality Bites. She is so good in that movie.
I loved her in Heathers.
Oh, everybody loves her in Heathers. I mean, Beetlejuice, she's great in that. She's amazing in Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah, she is, 100%.
Yeah. Did you know that she was actually supposed to be in the third Godfather film?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, what happened was the character that Sofia Coppola plays, and unfortunately she got a bad rap for it, that was originally given to Winona Ryder, but Winona Ryder ended up having to give up the role because she was sick.
That's so weird.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Like, she could have been in The Godfather 3.
Yeah. Yeah, I never knew that.
Yeah, it's crazy. She like had this really bad illness. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was what prevented her from actually keeping the role. It's really sad.
Oh.
Yeah, but she's great in Stranger Things. She really, really is. So who do you think had the biggest comeback?
So I didn't realize that you meant a person. I thought you meant a show that made a comeback. So I
It
picked
can.
in place of this. So I picked South Park because I used to love South Park and I used to watch it so religiously when I was a kid. And then it kind of just stagnated a bit, and it was always the same kind of storylines, and I always knew what to expect. And then season 18 came, and they've just changed everything and made it like the greatest show. And all of the episodes connect now, which they never did before. And there's so much political satire in it as well. And I love it. I think it's come back with such a bang. I've been really enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I want to commend you for actually taking this category and giving it your own spin, because that's great. I'm glad you did that.
That's what I thought of first.
Well, listen, you didn't ask me, so you took it as you will, and I appreciate the fact that you did, because I'm really glad you did, and I'm glad that you did bring South Park up. Now, I'm not a South Park watcher, however, I did watch the show when it first came out, like in 1996. I watched the pilot when it aired. You know, one of the few things that I can say, you know, unfortunately making me define my age at this point in time, but I watched the pilots of The Simpsons, Family Guy, and South Park the days they aired.
Wow.
And yeah, that South Park pilot, when you take a look at what South Park is now compared to what it was then, it's a totally different animal. It really is. I mean, my favorite episode for South Park will always be Make Love Not Warcraft. That is still my favorite episode. And I love the Shake Weight episode.
Yeah, that is funny.
That is one of the funny, and I love the movie too. The movie, the fact that they made it a musical made it so much more special. I love that movie so much.
That's what my favorite isn't that musical, but it's their version of High School Musical. That is amazing. One of the best episodes.
Yeah, but my brother and sister have been watching the show religiously. They basically, the whole process in making all these episodes, like they literally sit around the writer's table and they read the newspaper. They see like, what's the biggest thing that we need to bring to the show today? And they'll literally just make an episode right on the spot based on a current event.
Sense, though. It makes so much sense when you watch it, because that's what it feels like.
Well, you know something? Some of the best shows are based on the occurrences of a short time period. I mean, you probably remember the show Everybody Loves Raymond. I don't know if you ever watched it, but you know the show.
That was always on before I went to school.
So the show, when they first started putting the show together, the producer, Philip Rosenthal, he said, here's how we're going to make the show. I want you all to go home for the weekend, and if you get into a crazy fight with your family, you come back to the writer's table on Monday and you're going to tell us about it, and we're going to make an episode around that. Because the goal for that show was basically to prove that everybody, all your families are just as crazy as mine.
Yeah.
I mean, the pilot episode of Everybody Loves Raymond is a real story that happened to Philip Rosenthal. He basically gave his parents a subscription to Fruit of the Month, which is a weird club for the high Jewish holidays. And when his mother got their first package of fruit, she looked as if she had just gotten a box of severed heads from a mobster. So that was a part of the first episode of Everybody Loves Raymond.
Yeah. I used to love that show so much.
And I mean, look, speaking of that, I mean, Patricia Heaton's now on television on a brand new show, and apparently it's really doing well.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, Carol's Second Act, it's called. It's supposed to be a really cute show. I haven't watched it, but a lot of people are saying really good things about it.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we talk about the biggest surprise, like a show that just came out of freaking nowhere. Whether you started watching it and stopped, or if you're still watching it, it's become a pop culture phenomenon. What do you think was the biggest surprise of the last 10 years?
So I think this is more UK specific, because I didn't hear about the show at all because I was living in Switzerland, and then I came home to visit, and everyone was talking. It was all anyone was talking about, like when you went anywhere, and it was Killing Eve.
Oh, that's big now.
Everyone would not stop talking about it, and I was like, when did this show start? When it's just here now? Do you know what I mean? And then I remember watching it so fast. It is oh, it's such a good show.
Yeah, a lot of people are talking about Killing Eve. I think it got a couple of
Yeah.
award nominations recently.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, it's
the main. Well, I don't know if she's the main one because there's two main characters really, but one of them, Jodie Comer, is, oh my god, her accents are insane on that show. She's like Russian one minute, and then she's American, then she's British. It's crazy.
for me, the biggest surprise, I actually watched the first 2 seasons, but then I just fizzled out really quickly, but I gave it to Riverdale.
Okay.
I mean, like, it's a big surprise when you're actually going to turn the wholesome, lighthearted world of Archie comics into
Yeah.
something dark and dreary and mysterious, It's such a weird concept, but I was like, I have to, I was like, when it first aired, I was like, I have to see what this is all about. I really do. So the thing was, I thought the first season was really, really good.
Yeah,
but
I watched the first one.
Yeah, because it started in the middle of the television season, so it didn't have that many episodes. So I felt that if it literally went 13 episodes a season, it probably would have been much better.
Yeah.
But I don't think that the show can really carry a full season. I think that there was just, when the second season rolled around, for me there was just so much filler, and I was just so bored.
Yeah. I only watched the first season, and I watched it when it had come out, and then when the second season was coming out, like, I was all ready to watch it, and then it was just out, and I was like, oh, I'm not watching it. I don't really, when you're like, I think I'm going to want to watch it, and then you're like, no, I have no drive to watch it, so I wasn't really that fond, to be fair.
Yeah, I wasn't too, and something, it's sort of like when you DNF a book, when you DNF a show,
Yeah.
it's like, it's sort of sad. I mean, look, I'm not going to deny the fact that I've done this so many times, but I mean, look, technically I sort of DNF'd The Simpsons too. Like, I haven't been watching The Simpsons religiously since season 14, but I am still getting the DVDs because I still want to preserve the whole collection,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I was just impressed by the fact that they decided to make this into an idea for a show. And I know that there's still people that do love the show, but for me, not so much anymore. But I was still very much surprised that they took that chance.
Yeah, definitely.
So now let's get into two very interesting categories of the best show that you didn't watch. There are so many shows that come out, and then there's this one that was just so brilliant. You may have watched it, but the massive amount of television viewers didn't, and it should have been watched. So did you come up with an interesting one?
So I had two, but the first one I'm not going to mention that much because we have mentioned I've not seen Stranger Things. I know it's a big deal. Everybody watches it. I feel like I'm the only person on the planet who has not watched Stranger Things. And then the other one is a show called Dark, and this is a German TV show. And everyone was talking about it all the time when I was in Switzerland because it's like a German-speaking country, and it's supposed to be a little bit like a Stranger Things kind of show, and a little bit of like a Let the Right One In, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, that kind of vibe. It's like a cross of them, and I just think it sounds amazing, but I've still not seen it, and I really want to because it looks so good.
Okay, I mean, I've also heard of this show as well. A lot of people talk about it, yes. So for me, I did watch this specific show, but I know for a solid fact that a lot of people did not, which is why I said it was the best show you didn't watch. I gave it to a show called The Newsroom.
Okay. I haven't seen that.
The Newsroom was on HBO, and it starred Jeff Daniels, and it was basically what goes on in a behind the scenes in a news station. And it was written by Aaron Sorkin, who's one of my favorite writers.
Yeah.
And it also had an amazing cast, including Alison Pill from Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah.
And a whole bunch of other people whose names are completely escaping me at the moment. But Jeff Daniels really was the centerpiece of the show because he was the main anchor.
Yeah.
The first episode, right out the gate, you're officially hooked because basically Jeff Daniels' character, Will McAvoy, is in a college seminar assembly, and they're up to the Q&A point, and a young, cute blonde freshman basically just gets up and asks, can you tell me why America is the greatest country in the world? And he doesn't want to answer the question, and they basically pester him, and then he says America is not, and he basically disses conservatives, he disses liberals. I will send you a clip of this, but
This is really good.
but what I loved so much about the show was it was focusing each episode, most of them, on a big news event that was very recent, and how they got the story, how they clarified that the story was real, and how they brought it to the public. Like, they did everything from the explosion of the oil refinery in the Gulf of Mexico, the BP oil refinery, which is a major news story, the assassination of Osama bin Laden, like so many major recent news stories. And they also covered the 2012 presidential election. So it was a really great show. It was so well written. It was absolutely fantastic. I think you would like it.
Yeah, that actually does sound like a show I would really like.
Yeah, it was on for 3 years on HBO. I was really upset that it lasted for such a short period of time, but not that many people watched it. But everybody that did, the small select few that did, loved it. It was a brilliant show.
Yeah, it sounds like a kind of House of Cardsy kind of, like, not quite that, but like politically driven.
Yeah, I'll definitely send you a clip. I think you'd really like it. So now let's talk about the show that went before its time. A show that really started great, and then something happened, and it left.
So I picked Black Sails because Black Sails got cancelled, and I loved it, and no one else liked it.
I remember Black Sails.
No one seemed to like it, and no one watched it, and then it went away, and I loved it.
So I told you before we recorded that I was going to bend the rules just a tad. So this show came out in the latter portion of the early 2000s, but it got canceled in 2010, and a couple of years later, they tried to reboot it, but it didn't work. And that was Heroes.
Oh my god, I loved Heroes. Heroes was so good.
Heroes, especially when you take a look at that first season, it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. But some say that it was the writer's strike that happened right before the second season, and because of that, the show was just never the same after that. And
such a good show, though.
And it was just really sad that it ended in season 4, but then Heroes Reborn, I think it was called, came out like a couple of years later, in this last couple of years, and it just didn't catch on. Even I couldn't get into it. I was so upset. I'm a proud owner of the 4 seasons of the original run, and I still think that it was such a great idea because as someone who loves superheroes, you know, and, you know, I was a little upset over the fact that a show like that didn't do so well, because right now, when you take a look at all those DC Comics CW shows, they really don't focus on the whole concept of the superhero. It's really about angst and relationships. It's really not what superhero shows really should be about.
No, that's what I always liked about Heroes. It seemed to focus more on, like, what kind of powers they had and like how they all connected together, and it was just, I loved that guy who was like messing with people's brains like they were clocks. I just thought that whole storyline was so cool.
Yeah, I mean, and look at all those great actors that were on this show. I mean, you have Milo Ventimiglia, who is now on This Is Us, and you had Ali Larder on the show. Masti Oka, he was my favorite character on the show, and it was so upsetting because I really wanted to see him in more stuff. I thought that really would have been a great launching pad for him as a career in television or even film. And I mean, you also had a great number of ex-Star Trek cast members, like George Takei was in it, and Nichelle Nichols is in it, and also Robert Forster was in the show for a little bit of time, and there's also Hayden Panettiere, you know, like Hayden Panettiere. Yeah, she was the
She
cheerleader.
was massive after that, but I'm like, did she start in that one or was she in that singing one first? I can't remember.
She had been in a couple of things as a kid. I mean, she was the voice of Dot in A Bug's Life. She was in Remember the Titans.
Shit. I did not know that.
Yes, she is.
Okay, carry on. That was just
Yes,
surprising.
no problem. I'm glad I did surprise you. But yeah, she had a couple of roles as a little girl, but that was a
Yeah.
big show for her. And then she went on to do Nashville.
Also, Nashville was after.
Yeah, Nashville was after that. And also Zachary Quinto. We didn't know who Zachary Quinto was until Heroes.
And he's been huge from American Horror Story. He's done really great in that one.
I love him as Spock. I love him as Spock because he looks like Leonard Nimoy. That's what's so scary about him. So now we're going to get into some dirt here because we're going to talk about our guilty pleasures. There are great television shows, but there is a lot of trash too. But sometimes we sort of get sucked in and we actually have to hide the fact that we watch these shows. So what was your worst guilty pleasure?
So I think the most embarrassing thing that I religiously watched right up until the end, I watched the full thing even though it went so bad, and it was so bad to begin with, was The Vampire Diaries.
Oh!
Yeah, it's not the normal show that I would have watched either, but I had a friend at university who's like obsessed with it and she really got me into it, and yeah, shamed to say that was a show I watched all of.
I think I may be worse than you, to be honest.
Really?
I watched The Jersey Shore.
Wow, okay.
It was that 50-car pileup on the highway that you just couldn't look away from. It is one of the worst things that television ever gave us, but it was huge.
Yeah.
I mean, these people, and it made me angry as a New Yorker, just because of the fact that you really saw like the worst of the worst in people thanks to this show.
See, I've never seen any of the shows that are like that, or like Keeping Up with the Kardashians, anything like that. I'm just like, it's not for me.
Yeah, it wasn't, trust me, it wasn't for me either. But I watched it because of the fact that I was like, yeah, thank God my life is not like this. You know, I
was sad and you're like, okay, my life's good. It's not this.
Yeah, that's exactly why I think a lot of people watched it too. But yeah, I cannot believe that it became this massive phenomenon. I really can't. Even though I can understand all the reasons why it could have, but even I just still don't get it. But yeah, I watched it. Even if I didn't watch it like on the day it aired, like I would literally watch reruns and I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible.
Wow.
Okay, so now we're going to go into something that I'm calling it, I'm so glad it's over. It's this one show that whether you liked it or you hated it, you knew that at some point in time, this cow had to go off to pasture. Like it had to go. So what did you choose?
So I chose Game of Thrones.
Okay.
I can't impress upon you how much I loved that show. I loved the books. I was so obsessed with it, and so it hurt so much when it got bad that I was like, I just want this to end because it's too painful.
You know, I think that if season 8 was written better, I don't think anybody would have these kinds of attitudes, you know?
Do you know what? Everything that happened, like the main issue is all the Daenerys stuff, and like if all of that had just been spread out, it would have been fine because you can see that coming. Like you could have guessed it, especially off the books, but because they wrote it all in one season and did all the character development too fast and it just didn't work. So it was sad.
Okay. I don't know whether you're going to be upset or actually laugh when I give you my choice. I chose the Oprah Winfrey Show.
Okay.
It was just one of those talk shows because it was kind of funny because there were all of these talk shows that were on like in the 1980s and 90s. And I don't know. I think that people make too much of a big deal about Oprah. you know?
Yeah.
So
It's someone we hear a lot about that I don't really know why I hear that much about.
yeah, I mean, it's like even today, you can tell that she's trying to keep a low profile, even though she's still, just as known and dominant like Martha Stewart or something like that.
Yeah.
But I was just glad that she was off television because I was just so sick and tired of hearing about Oprah. I still think it was hilarious that people tried to get Oprah to run for president.
That was just ridiculous when that was happening. I was
Yeah.
like, this just makes it clear how stupid it is. Like, that's the same argument as Trump being president. Neither of them have any, like, of the stuff that you need to run for president.
Why do you want her to run for president? Because you like her Book of the Month club or you read her? I'm like, that's not the reason to vote. But then again, Trump's in the White House, but that's a whole other animal for another time. But nobody understands how he got there anyway. But yeah, I just wanted her show to end because, one of the other things that I always say is that you don't want to outstay your welcome. You want to have your impact, and then you just want to ride off into the sunset and just look back and say, it was a good run, I had a good life, and now let me just enjoy the rest of my years,
Yeah.
And she's still doing, look, I won't deny the fact that she is a great entrepreneur. She's a great businesswoman. She's a very powerful person. She's got a very positive voice. But the fact that her voice is not as dominant as it used to be, I'm kind of happy about that.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's pretty much capping off what we have seen in the last 10 years. But the next and final two questions are going to be about the future. So we're only going to focus specifically on drama and comedy in television shows. So Rachel, my good friend, who do you think or what do you think is going to be the next big dramatic TV show?
So I don't know if this is going to be a next dramatic TV show for other people. I'm just very excited about it because it was my favourite book as a kid, and I'm really excited that I've heard that it's being made into a BBC drama here in England, and it is Noughts and Crosses. So this was a book by Mallory Blackburn that I was so obsessed with, like so obsessed with, and apparently they're making like a dystopian TV show thing version of it, and I'm so excited.
That's great. Well,
that's big for me.
Well, I gotta tell you, I'm actually really excited you said this because the show that I'm talking about just came out this fall, and it's also associated with the BBC.
Okay.
Yep, it's HBO's His Dark Materials.
Yeah.
I have been watching the first season, and I have been loving it. I love Daphne Keane. Ever since I saw Logan, I was like, oh man, I hope that she does some more projects. So the fact that she is Lyra on this show is amazing. Ruth Wilson is incredible. Lin-Manuel Miranda, what a great choice. And I love the CGI demons. I think that they are so cool. And you know what? People always say, when a specific show ends, especially on HBO, like what is going to be the show that takes its place? Because like we don't have Game of Thrones anymore, so what was going to be the next big show? And quite frankly, I think His Dark Materials has the potential to be that kind of a show. It's not as gory, it's not as mature as Game of Thrones, but it's got that great fantasy element. Oh yeah, and James McAvoy, even though he's not been in much of it, he'll be back, I'm hoping, because I love him as well. But I've already said this has the potential to be the next Game of Thrones because I'm already humming the theme song. So yeah, 2 episodes left and I have just been so happy with it. It came out along with Watchmen. I was not happy with it at all. It started.
The comics of that are they're like some of the biggest, most popular.
Oh, I know. I've read Watchmen. I love the Zack Snyder film.
Yeah.
But I'm not really on board with this show. It started off very strong and then it really fizzled out. I was really upset.
Okay.
Yeah, but His Dark Materials, I think, is the next big one. It's just that great. Like, you are just hooking on to these characters, the story. Anyone like myself, as a science fiction fantasy fan, I love the concept of the multiverse. To me, that is just one of the coolest ideas because it is also something to me that is somewhat realistic because whenever you hit a crossroads in life, you always think about, you know, what if I went in that other direction?
Yeah, that,
So it's like,
thing.
exactly. So it's like every single time you reach a crossroads and you go in one direction, for all we know, we may have created another parallel version of ourselves in a different world.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my very good friends once said, if the multiverse is something that truly exists, then somewhere on some alternate world, I am in fact a rodeo clown.
That's so random.
But it's true. And the final category is the next best comedy.
So this is just the thing that I'm most excited for at the moment, because I don't normally know a lot of things that are coming out, and this one is only coming out for Christmas Day, but I'm just so excited for it, and it's the new Gavin and Stacey Christmas special.
Oh, I heard about that.
I'm so excited I could die, and I think I will cry on Christmas Day when it comes on. It's like my favorite comedy of all time. I'm so excited for the Christmas special.
Well, for me, the next big comedy has also already aired, and it's about to go into its third season. It's developing a following that is always growing with each season, but unfortunately, it is no longer on network television. It's on Hulu now, and it's a show called The Orville.
Oh, okay, I've never seen that.
So, The Orville was created by Seth MacFarlane, the creator of Family Guy.
Oh, okay.
And the show is, you know, what's happening right now with Star Trek, especially with Star Trek Discovery. There are people that love Star Trek Discovery or like truly hate Star Trek Discovery. But everybody basically has been saying, if you want to watch the best Star Trek show on television, you watch The Orville.
Yeah. Okay.
The Orville is a love letter to Star Trek. And it's got some really great comedy in it.
Yeah.
But now it's definitely starting to turn into more of a dramatic show with a little bit of comedy in it, rather than just a comedy with drama in it. You know what I mean? And what I really appreciate about this show is that some of the producers from some of the past Star Trek shows are associated with the Orville. Cast members, I don't remember exactly who, but also there are some Star Trek cast members that have actually written and directed some of the episodes.
Oh, cool. So I never watched Star Trek, the original ones, but I really loved Star Trek Voyager when I was a kid.
So, just so you know, Robert Duncan McNeil directed a few of the episodes, and Robert Picardo has been a reoccurring character.
Oh, cool. See, I was like, I need to specify, is there some Star Trek Voyager going on?
No, my wife's a big fan of Voyager, but yeah, I think you would like The Orville. It's really fun. It's a fun show. It's also, what I appreciate about it is since you're a big South Park fan, there are a couple of episodes that really give us some allegories in regards to current society and stuff like that. Like there was an episode where they went to a world where everybody's status in life was based on how many likes they got on social media.
Oh my, that sounds like Black Mirror kind of stuff. That.
And there was also there's also some aliens in this show. One of them is one of the crew members, and they're called Mocklins, and they only are a society of males. But every now and again, a female is born, and they actually force transgenderism on these babies.
Oh.
So it's about what's going on with gender and stuff like that. It's got comedy in it, but it's also got some very serious in it as well. And
really
and as someone who is a big fan of Seth MacFarlane, I love him. He's a fantastic writer, singer, director. He is just incredible. And this show to me was something that I was so curious about because I wanted to see what he would do.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm actually wearing, my t-shirt is actually a line from the show. In the first episode, they meet a scientist, and the scientist created a ray that ages things, or like speeds up time. So he uses a banana, and he puts the banana in it, and the banana basically in 2 seconds, like molds and rots. So Seth MacFarlane, and the other best part about it is his second in command is actually also his ex-wife. So there's a little bit of romance in it as well. It's really, really funny. So the two of them see the banana and they're like, wow, you created an anti-banana ray. We need no longer fear the banana.
That sounds funny.
I think you would like it. I don't know if you can find it in the UK, but it is on DVD right now. I actually just got season 2. The only thing that I'm upset about is the fact that I can't watch it anymore because it's on Hulu.
Oh, that's annoying.
So the only thing that I am praying for is that they will continue to put out the show on DVD because I would like to get season 3.
Yeah. I'm sure if they put 1 and 2 out, I'm sure they'll do 3.
I really hope so because I don't know what it is when it comes to physical media these days. You know, Fox and Warner Brothers, they always know, put out the stuff because, Warner Brothers has that DC Universe streaming service, and one of my favorite shows from Cartoon Network was called Young Justice, and it got canceled back in 2012. But because it was in such high demand when they made that streaming service, they made a 3rd season. And I didn't get the streaming service because I didn't want it. But I said to myself, knowing Warner Brothers, this show's 3rd season will come out on DVD. And just last month, it was. I got it. I watched it. They already announced at San Diego Comic-Con there will be a season 4. So I am so excited. So yeah. So as long as these companies still understand that there are people that do, because that's the other thing. It's like, I don't know why you would phase out physical media, because people who collect these things will buy it. And also, people who don't have the streaming service, they'll buy it too.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Even if sometimes, so like Peaky Blinders, you can get Peaky Blinders anywhere because it's on BBC, it's on Netflix. I still have the DVDs because if I really, really, really love a show, I'll get the DVDs of it because I'll want them. Orange is the New Black's the same. They're not going to take Orange is the New Black off Netflix, but I'm still, I've still got the DVDs because I love it.
Yeah.
So I don't see the reason to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I have Stranger Things on Blu-ray because you can only get it at Target in the United States, but I have it because it's one of those shows. If I ever decide to let Netflix go, I'll have it for.
Let that one go.
And the best part is, I don't have to pay any more money for them.
Yeah.
And I mean, the only streaming service that makes sense to me is Amazon Prime, because you're not buying the Amazon Prime service for the streaming. You're buying it for the sake of your purchases. So it's just a little icing on the cake because the Amazon Prime shows do not come out on DVD. But I'm never going to get rid of Amazon Prime. So I'm completely okay with that, even though I would like to have The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel on DVD. I kind of want that really badly. But yeah, that's just the way it is, So that's it, everybody. That is the best and worst of television from the last 10 years. So I'm really hoping that you all enjoyed it. Rachel, I hope you had a great time.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, look, I'm just hoping that in the coming year, we will definitely do some more projects together, because working with you 2 times has been great. And I'm really hoping that 2020 will be a year where we both continue to branch out, and hopefully we'll work together a little bit more.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. I'll see you in the next episode. Hey, thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. If you're new here and want to see more of what my channel has to offer, please click on the link to my last video, or hit that subscribe button to be kept up to date with all of my uploads. Content of all sorts is posted here quite often, so trust me, you do not want to fall behind. I will see you in the comments, and actions speak louder than words.